Hello class, welcome to today's segment whereby we are going to be discussing the main content of the IELTS reading test. We are also going to discuss the general structure of the IELTS reading test. So let's get right into it. As we all know, there is the IELTS academic reading test and the IELTS general reading test. There is a slight difference between the academic and general tests. So let's compare and contrast the two. For academic test, there are three longer passages. For the first passage, you should take around 15 minutes. For the second passage, you should take about 20 minutes. And for the third passage, you should take 25 minutes. Try to save time whenever you can, especially in the first and second passages. This is because the first and second passages are considered to be easier compared to the third passage. So, in academic, there are only 3 passages, and these passages are slightly longer compared to the passages in the general test. They are slightly longer and their intensity increases, meaning the first passage is slightly easier as compared to the second and third, and the second is slightly easier as compared to the third. So that's why the first passage you should take shorter time as compared to the second and third passages. For general test, there are around 5 to 6 passages. Take at most 10 minutes per passage. So for the general test, the passages are shorter and there are a total of 5 to 6 passages for the whole test. So for each passage, take at most 10 minutes. So 10 minutes for passage 1. This is to read and to answer the question. To read and to answer the questions in each passage. And as the passages as you go through the passages, the intensity increases. So if the first passage you took around 7 minutes, the 8th passage, the 6th passage or 5th passage, you're going to take around 10 minutes. So the intensity varies, so at least make more time for the passages in the last section of the test. Peruse through the passage within 1 minute or less just to get the whole idea and message of the passage. So, first of all, I forgot such an important mention. The reading test consists of 40 questions. So if it's a academic and there are three passages, each passage is going to have around 40 divided by 3 is around 13 questions. Am I right? Yes, around 13 questions per passage for the academic, and for the general, out of 40 questions and there are 5 passages, it's about 8 questions per passage. So please remember there are 40 questions in the reading test. So what my previous point means is that once you have you want to tackle the questions in a specific passage, before you even begin looking at the questions or doing anything, first read through the passage, but not in detail, just peruse through within at most 1 minute. Speed read through the passage so that you're able to understand what this passage is all about. Don't just go straight to the questions without knowing what the passage is talking about. Just do not read it as in word by word, detail by detail. You're just speed reading within 1 minute to have a general idea of what the passage is talking about. And then later on, when you're answering the questions, is the time you're going to be reading word by word, sentence by sentence. This is because you'll be needed to identify the correct answer and the specific answer of the questions. But the first 1 minute is for speed reading so that you understand the whole context of the questions. Always do this before you begin answering the questions to a certain passage. I had talked about this point before, but I'm going to repeat it. Identify the keyword in a question and match it with your keyword in the answer, and ensure that you can explain it rightfully so. Zero blind guesses. So as we had discussed earlier, always ensure that once you read a question, identify the keyword in that question, and then go to the passage, read through the passage, and where you think the answer is, ensure that there is the same keyword in the question where your answer is. So whatever you choose as your answer should have the same keyword in your question. If not the exact same, at least a synonym to your keyword. And you should be able to explain your answer fully. So if I ask you, why did you choose this as your answer, you are able to explain, I chose this as my answer because of this and this and this, and it should make sense. It shouldn't just be like a blind guess. Okay. So for the academic test, the information in the passages are obtained from books, newspapers, academic journals, or more serious like educative talks. For general, the information in the passages are about day-to-day life, e.g. hobbies, conversations you can pick up with anyone, etc. So the difference in the passages between academic and general is that in academic, the information is mostly academic centered. I mean, the passages are not going to be talking about a day in my life or hobbies. They're going to be things more on the serious side, e.g. climate change, e.g. camping, e.g. maybe weather forecast, e.g. something serious. I don't know, I'm trying to think of examples, but the passages are going to be about something serious. But in general, the passages are going to be about something light, e.g. hobbies, e.g. a day in my life, e.g. a talk with my friends, something you can, conversations or topics you discuss with your friends, colleagues on a day-to-day basis. But academic is going to be centered around topics that are discussed in school, topics discussed in seminars. You get what I mean? Yes. This is just a bonus information which I'm going to add here. If there is a match heading type of question, begin with that as you answer the question and still get an idea of the passage. So as we had said before, once you have encountered a passage and you want to begin answering this passage, you should begin with taking 1 minute to peruse through the passage before going to answer the questions, right? But sometimes there are usually questions that talk about find headings for each topic, for each paragraph in the passage. So for example, you read paragraph 1 in the passage, you find the appropriate heading. You read paragraph 2 in the passage, you find the appropriate heading. Paragraph 3 in the passage, you find the appropriate heading, etc. So in that case, you're going to identify that question, and then as you peruse through your passage, you're going to answer that question. So in this case, you're not going to spend 1 minute. You're not going to spend 1 minute perusing the whole passage. You're going to now read in detail, because the nature of the question in this passage is to answer, to give headings. So in this case, for you to give a heading, you need to have read carefully through each paragraph of the passage. Hope you've understood what I mean. So if there's a match heading kind of question, you're going to be needed to read through the passage in detail so that you can answer that kind of question. But if there's no that kind of question, you're just going to peruse through the passage in 1 minute. Okay. What else in regards to the main content? Let me see. Oh dear. Be time conscious, guys. For the reading test, as we had said earlier, it takes 60 minutes and there's no additional time. So please be time conscious and always ensure that you do not leave any blank spaces in a passage. So for example, you've opened this passage, you are tackling this passage, do not leave a blank space. Just fill it in, and once you've filled it in, put a star. For example, if you're not sure if that is the answer or not, just place a star in that question and then go to the next, but do not leave a blank space. This is because you might run out of time, and you might run out of time without getting the time to come back to that question you left blank. So rather fill it out, and if you get time towards the end of the test, you're going to come back to that question, rather than maybe the answer you will have filled out was the correct answer but you left it blank. So just fill it out and then place a star. Yes. So be time conscious. Time really goes fast, very fast. So 1 hour literally sometimes seems like 30 minutes. So be time conscious. But during your practice test, you're going to get used to the speed required to go through each passage. And yeah, by the time you come to the actual test, then you'll be well prepared. Difficulty level increases with each step, with each passage. We had already talked about this. So yeah, as you go on, the passages increase in difficulty. Take keen note of word count and correct spelling. So always use the word count required in a specific section. Other than that, also ensure that you've used the correct spelling, especially in reading, since you do not need to know you're just copying the answer from your passage. So there's no excuse of you using the wrong spelling. So please have the correct spelling. 1 mark is equals to 1 correct answer. So I told you the questions are out of 40, and for each correct answer you place, that is 1 mark. Always read the question and remember it before even going through the passage again. So for example, you have read the question, and while you're perusing through the passage, you find out you've forgotten the question. Please just look at the question once more and return back to the passage. That is something that used to affect me while I was preparing for my reading test. I could read a question. By the time I'm finishing a certain paragraph, I'm like, wait, first of all, what was the question? But with practice, you're going to realize that you get to remember the question longer. Like the more you practice, the more you get used to remembering what the question was for a long time. So yeah, don't worry so much about that. So in the structure of the reading test, there are different types of questions, different question types. These include match headings, true, false, not given type of questions, matching features, table completion, flowchart completion, multiple choice questions, summary completion. So in the reading exam, there are different types of questions, like question structure. So for these question structures, I'm going to list down the characteristics of each question structure on the description box. But in our live sessions and in your practice test, you're going to identify this kind of questions and also identify which type of questions come easier to you and which types of questions you have more difficulty in, and then the ones that you have more difficulty in, you're going to work on them, and the easier ones, you just polish them up. Yes, so in the description box, I'm going to explain each question type in detail, and even in the live sessions we are going to talk about them. Okay guys, we've come to the end of the main content parts, and yes, see you in the next class, which will be about, I think it's things to note. Yes, things to note and mistakes to avoid in the reading exam. Okay guys, bye.